Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dr. Liz Wangare Geshimu, a clinical psychologist based in Kenya. Thank you so much for tuning in to this channel, Mugekoyo by Ancestry Understanding Mental Health. So today, I want us to talk about the topic of why we think the way we do. And how I have chosen to carry this discussion is by talking about a topic in psychology called conditioning. So, in order for us to understand this word conditioning, I will refer to two key psychologists, or who are referred to as the founding fathers of the school in psychology referred to as behaviorism. And these will be Ivan Pavlov, and the other one is B.F. Skinner. Don't worry, I will make it as understandable as possible. I won't be technical, so don't be scared. Okay, so the first person we're going to discuss is Ivan Pavlov and his theory of classical conditioning. So Ivan Pavlov was a Russian physiologist. Being a physiologist, it means he was studying a lot about the body, specifically animals. So he carried out this experiment, and by accident, what he discovered, he was trying to understand the anatomy of the digestive anatomy of the dogs. And while he was going about his experiment, he accidentally discovered that these dogs that he was working with, whenever he would ring a bell, they would start to salivate. And why? In anticipation of food. So he has rang the bell. There is no food. However, these dogs have learned to associate the sound of the bell with being given food. It was like, eureka. You mean you can be able to condition something without necessarily, presenting the real deal, right? So it's sort of like you create an illusion. I'm not giving you the deal, but I have created in your mind that this is the reality. And so you buy into that. We'll talk a little bit more, relate that to our topic of discussion, why we think the way we do. The next person is B.F. Skinner. Now, his theory is called operant conditioning. Now, B.F. Skinner did a lot of experiments with animals in cages, specifically rats and pigeons. And so, in those experiments, he came up with three parts that make up his theory: positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, punishment. Positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and punishment. So, what do these words mean? What did B.F. Skinner tell us? In positive reinforcement, what he discovered is if he wanted to maintain a certain behavior, he would reward it. He would reward it. For example, he wants, say it's one of the pigeons he's experimenting with. He wants it to reach out to food from a certain space. So what he discovered, if he always ensures that there is food and he triggers the bird to go towards that tray, it would always repeat that behavior. So rewarding the behavior that you want to repeat. What is negative reinforcement? So in negative reinforcement, he discovered if you make the situation uncomfortable, then it will deter certain behaviors from recurring. So for example, in his experiments, he wants the rat not, for example, to press a certain lever, he makes that anytime it touches that, it gets shocked. So what will the rat learn? I don't want to get shocked. If I touch this, I'll get shocked, so it won't touch that. So you see, create a condition that makes the situation uncomfortable to discourage certain behaviors. And what about punishment? So punishment has to do with introducing pain in order to deter a certain behavior. Okay? It has to do with pain. And now, so that I can bring it back to the topic, why we think the way we do. How do these two, or what can these two theories of conditioning tell us? So, if I was to ask you, for example, what brands do you like? It could be car. It could be, for ladies, cosmetics. It could be even how you dress. If I was to ask you, how do you like that? Or how did you come into the knowledge? Or how did you come to the conclusion, I love this, and this is the reason why I love this? How did you get to that conclusion? And for the most part, you find that it's because you listened to somebody tell you about the product. For example, that's what advertising, what does advertising do? They give you images which they combine with certain music, and they arise certain feelings in you, right? And so you find yourself drawn to that product because of what you feel. So in short, why you're going for this specific product, it's not so much because of you have a lot of information that indeed it does what it has been said it will do, but it's because of how you feel. Okay, so in how classical conditioning works is by triggering certain emotions that are likely to make you engage in certain activities, certain behaviors. That's how that works. And how does operant conditioning work? For example, you find at work, you're given targets and you're told if you do this, this will be the reward. So you find most people will work towards the target so that they can be able to get the bonus or the reward, right? And in schools, some teachers motivate students by having prize giving so that now students work towards getting the prize. So it motivates them to work or to act in certain ways. Okay. Then we have, again, if I was to go back to the example of the workspace, you find that you're told if you don't meet the targets, you might be laid off, your contract might not be renewed, and such like things. These are negative things. These are not things that don't make you feel too good, right? So sometimes what motivates you, it's the fear of losing your job, of not having an income. Sometimes you find also, say for example, even at home, in a family situation, just the thought of this person will come and start making noise, you know, it makes you to avoid that noise. Let me do this and these actions. If it's clearing the dishes, let me clear just to avoid being, you know, made for noise. Okay. If it's, say, watching a certain program, let me avoid sitting for so many hours to watch that because I don't like that noise. Negative reinforcement. That's how it works. Punishment. Collectively, the fear of ending up in prison works to deter a lot of us from engaging in certain activities, right? Now I know a lot of schools have banned spanking, but essentially that is the same logic. The fear of being beaten is what helps you regulate your behaviors. But now what we have found is that punishment, what it does, it teaches you ways of not getting caught. Because, for example, we know that, yes, you could end up in prison. But every day we are bombarded with scandals left, right, and center of embezzlement of funds. So why is the thought of you might end up in prison deter people from engaging in some of these activities? It's because they have studied and known how to not get caught, right? So from studies, what we know is that punishment as a tool or as a way of trying to engage or make people not engage in certain behaviors is not very effective or doesn't work quite well. Yeah. Now, I said that we are discussing about why we think the way we do, and I've given us a brief about 2 ways of how our minds work, how we acquire our thought processes, and in turn then behave or act in certain ways. The topics was classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Now, in this era, whereby we are always on our gadgets, those gadgets, there's always information that you're consuming. When you're watching a movie, what is it that you're acquiring from that? What is the message that you're acquiring from that? I asked a group of young people to tell me what they think a relationship should be about, what love should be about. Well, it was a very interesting discussion. And the question I asked, how did you learn about love? And most of them, from watching movies, from listening to songs, love songs. Okay? So that's how they learned. This is how a man should treat you. This is how a woman should treat you. This is how I should behave. This is what love looks like. You know, when you feel that, like how some of those songs say, you know, I can't eat, I can't sleep, I feel a certain, you know, something coming from my belly, that kind of thing. So the question then becomes, if you hadn't heard that song, and you have those feelings, you have something coming from your belly, you can't sleep, you can't eat, as when you have thoughts of somebody, would you associate that with love? Right? So, you see, a lot of what we know, or a lot of why we think the way we do, is as a result of the information we consume. So the question becomes, when you examine your behavior vis-a-vis what you're constantly consuming, what you're constantly allowing yourself to view, do you think that information is serving you? Do you think that information is in your best interest? Because a lot of times, especially when you look at classical conditioning, this is something that you do unconsciously. If you feel aroused in certain ways, and now you associate that with love, you associate that with this is the best, you know, this person is good for me. It's so unconscious, because apart from how you feel, apart from what has been aroused in you, what other information do you have? What other facts do you have that that's so? Okay? So, I want us to examine some of our beliefs. I want us to examine some of the things that we do and ask ourselves, how did I acquire this way of viewing and of being? And do I need to make adjustments? Do I need to be a bit more cautious of what I allow myself to consume? Because like it or not, anything you view, anything you consume is affecting you. And more so on an subconscious level. And it will come out in how you behave and how you act and how you relate with others. So let us be mindful Let us be more engaged and more active in what we allow to come into our minds. And with those very many words, I want to thank you for watching, and I wish you the best. Thank you.